The external world is nothing more than a reflection of your internal states of consciousness. And until you learn to assume the feeling of your wish fulfilled, that external world will continue to mirror back to you exactly what you have always been. The art of assumption is the most practical thing in the world. It is not mysticism, though it may seem mystical to those who have never practiced it. It is not magic, though its results may appear magical to those who witness them. It is simply the natural law of consciousness operating through the medium of human imagination. When you truly understand what it means to assume your new identity, when you actually feel yourself to be what you desire to be, the whole vast world must reshape itself to confirm your assumption. But let me be clear about what assumption really means, for this word has been so diluted by casual usage that its true power has been forgotten. To assume is not to pretend. To assume is not to hope or wish or desire. To assume is to actually take upon yourself the mental and emotional state of already being what you want to be. It is to feel so completely identified with your desired state that there is no longer any sense of separation between you and it. When you have truly assumed your new identity, you do not think about it. You do not work toward it. You do not hope for it. You simply are it. This is where most people fail in their attempts to transform their lives. They try to assume while still maintaining their old identity. They attempt to feel wealthy while still feeling poor, to feel loved while still feeling rejected, to feel successful while still carrying the consciousness of failure. This creates an internal contradiction that cancels out the power of assumption. You cannot assume your new identity while holding on to your old one. The assumption of the new must be so complete that the old simply ceases to exist in your consciousness. The foundation of all successful assumption lies in understanding that consciousness is the only reality. Everything you see, everything you experience, everything that appears to have solid existence in the world around you is nothing more than consciousness pushed out into manifestation. Your body, your environment, your relationships, your circumstances, all of these are simply external reflections of states of consciousness that you have assumed, either consciously or unconsciously, either deliberately or by default. When you begin to grasp this truth, you realize that changing your external conditions is not a matter of manipulating the world around you. It is a matter of changing the consciousness from which you are operating. And the way you change consciousness is through the disciplined practice of assumption. You must learn to feel yourself into the state of being that corresponds to your fulfilled desire. And you must maintain that feeling with such consistency and intensity that it becomes your natural state of being. The secret lies in understanding that your imagination is not separate from reality. Your imagination is the creative power of God operating through you. When you imagine yourself to be what you desire to be, when you feel it so vividly that it becomes real to you, you are not engaging in fantasy. You are engaging in the fundamental creative act by which all things come into existence. Everything that exists was first imagined. Everything that you see in the world around you was once nothing more than an imaginal act in someone's consciousness. But imagination without feeling is powerless. You can imagine yourself wealthy 1,000 times, but if you do not feel wealthy, if you do not assume the emotional state of wealth, your imagination remains barren. The feeling is the secret. The feeling is what breathes life into your imaginal act and transforms it from mere fantasy into creative power. When you can imagine yourself in possession of your desire and feel the reality of that possession, you have set in motion the forces that must inevitably bring that desire into manifestation. This is why I emphasize again and again the importance of living from the end. Do not live in hope of your desire's fulfillment. Do not live in expectation of its coming. Live from the assumption that it is already yours. Live from the feeling of the wish fulfilled. When you live from the end, you collapse time. You bring the future into the present moment and make it your current reality. The external world may take time to catch up with your assumption, but in consciousness, the transformation is instantaneous. Let me tell you exactly how to practice this art of assumption. First, you must become very clear about what you want to be. Not what you want to have, not what you want to do, but what you want to be. For being is the foundation of having and doing. If you want wealth, you must assume the identity of a wealthy person. If you want love, you must assume the identity of a person who is deeply loved. If you want success, you must assume the identity of a successful person. The having and the doing will follow naturally from the being. Once you have identified the identity you wish to assume, you must construct a scene that would imply the fulfillment of your desire. This scene should be simple, natural, and involve some action on your part. If you wish to assume the identity of a successful business owner, you might construct a scene where you are signing an important contract or addressing your employees. If you wish to assume the identity of a happily married person, you might construct a scene where you are wearing a wedding ring and someone is congratulating you on your marriage. The key to making your scene effective is to make it sensory, vivid. You must see what you would see, hear what you would hear, feel what you would feel if your desire were already fulfilled. But most importantly, you must capture the feeling of fulfillment. You must feel the satisfaction, the joy, the sense of completion that would be yours if your desire were already realized. This feeling is the soul of your assumption, and without it, your technique becomes nothing more than empty mental exercise. Now comes the discipline that separates those who succeed from those who fail. You must return to this scene again and again, particularly in that drowsy state just before sleep when your conscious mind relaxes its guard and your subconscious becomes most receptive to impression. Night after night, you must feel yourself into this scene until it becomes more real to you than your present circumstances. You must persist in this assumption until it becomes your natural state of consciousness. This persistence is absolutely crucial, for your subconscious mind is habituated to your old identity. It has been maintaining your current reality for years, perhaps decades, and it will not easily surrender its familiar patterns. You must be more persistent in assuming your new identity than your subconscious is in maintaining your old one. You must return to the feeling of your wish fulfilled with such consistency and intensity that your subconscious has no choice but to accept it as your new reality. During this period of gestation, you may find that your external circumstances seem to contradict your assumption. You may be assuming wealth while your bank account remains empty. You may be assuming love while you remain alone. You may be assuming success while you face apparent failure. This is the test of your faith, the trial of your assumption. You must not let appearances shake your conviction. You must remember that the external world is always the last to change, and you must maintain your assumption regardless of what your senses report. This is where most people abandon their assumption. They allow the evidence of their senses to override the testimony of their imagination. They forget that consciousness is the only reality and that all external conditions are simply shadows cast by their states of consciousness. They return to their old identity because it seems more real, more solid, more supported by evidence. But I tell you that the evidence of your senses is the least reliable guide to truth. Your senses can only report what has already been created by consciousness. They cannot reveal what consciousness is in the process of creating. The man or woman who would successfully assume a new identity must learn to live by faith rather than by sight. Faith is not belief in the impossible. Faith is loyalty to your unseen reality. It is fidelity to your assumption despite all appearances to the contrary. When you have faith in your assumption, when you remain loyal to your new identity, regardless of what your present circumstances may suggest, you demonstrate the quality of consciousness that inevitably manifests as changed conditions. But let me address a common misunderstanding about assumption. Some believe that to assume effectively, they must deny present circumstances or pretend that their current problems do not exist. This is not true assumption. True assumption does not require you to deny any facts. It requires you to transcend them. You can acknowledge your present circumstances while simultaneously assuming your new identity. The key is to give greater reality to your assumption than to your present conditions. Think of it this way. An actor on stage may be playing the role of a king, but he does not deny that he is actually a common man. He simply gives greater reality to his role than to his personal circumstances for the duration of the performance. In the same way, you can acknowledge your present circumstances while giving greater reality to your assumed identity. You live from your assumption while passing through your present conditions. The power of assumption becomes even more evident when you understand that you are always assuming something. Every moment of every day you are maintaining some identity, some sense of who and what you are. The question is not whether you will assume, but what you will assume. Most people assume by default. They accept the identity that has been given to them by their circumstances, their upbringing, their past experiences. They assume limitation because limitation has been their experience. They assume lack because lack has been their reality. But you have the power to assume by design. You can consciously choose the identity you wish to embody. You can deliberately select the state of consciousness from which you wish to operate. This is your divine prerogative, your godlike power. You are not a victim of your circumstances. You are not bound by your past. You are not limited by what others believe about you or what you have believed about yourself. You are the operant power in your world, and assumption is your method of operation. When you begin to assume consciously and deliberately, you discover that the world is far more malleable than you ever imagined. People change their attitude toward you. Opportunities appear where none existed before. Resources become available that were previously beyond your reach. The very fabric of your reality reshapes itself to accommodate your new assumption. This is not coincidence. This is not luck. This is the natural law of consciousness manifesting through your assumption. But remember that assumption is an art that requires practice. Like any skill, it improves with repetition. Your first attempts may feel awkward, artificial, unnatural. This is normal. You have been assuming your old identity for so long that it feels natural, while your new assumption feels foreign. But persist in your practice. Continue to return to the feeling of your wish fulfilled. Day by day, your new assumption will become more natural, more automatic, more spontaneous. As you persist in your assumption, you will notice subtle changes beginning to occur. Your thoughts will begin to align with your new identity. Your words will begin to reflect your assumed state. Your actions will begin to flow from your new consciousness. You will find yourself naturally behaving as the person you have assumed yourself to be. This is the beginning of manifestation, the first sign that your assumption is taking root in your consciousness. The more completely you assume your new identity, the more quickly it will manifest in your experience. Half-hearted assumption produces half-hearted results. Occasional assumption produces occasional results. But complete, persistent, unwavering assumption produces inevitable results. When you assume so completely that you no longer think of yourself as assuming, when your new identity becomes so natural that you forget you ever were anything else, manifestation becomes automatic. This is the state of consciousness that I call living from the wish fulfilled. You are no longer working toward your desire. You are no longer hoping for its fulfillment. You are living as though it is already yours. Because in consciousness, it is already yours. This is the end of struggle, the end of effort, the end of trying to make things happen. When you live from the wish fulfilled, things happen through you rather than by you. Many people resist this teaching because it seems to place all responsibility on their shoulders. They prefer to believe that their circumstances are beyond their control, that they are victims of forces larger than themselves. But I tell you that this responsibility is not a burden. It is the greatest gift you could ever receive. It means that you are not powerless. It means that you are not dependent on others for your happiness, your success, your fulfillment. It means that you have within yourself the power to create any life you can imagine. The moment you truly accept this responsibility, the moment you fully embrace your power as the operant consciousness in your world, everything changes. You stop looking outside yourself for salvation. You stop waiting for conditions to improve. You stop hoping that others will change. You turn within and begin the work of assumption, the work of becoming who you want to be rather than remaining who you have been. This work of assumption is not always easy, but it is always simple. It requires no special knowledge, no particular talent, no external resources. It requires only your willingness to feel yourself into the state of your fulfilled desire and to persist in that feeling until it becomes your natural state of consciousness. Every person has this ability. Every person can learn this art. The only question is whether you will have the persistence to practice it until it becomes second nature. The transformation that assumption can produce in your life is beyond anything you can currently imagine. I have seen the poorest become wealthy, the loneliest find love, the sickest become healthy, the most unsuccessful achieve their greatest dreams. I have witnessed these transformations not once or twice, but hundreds of times in the lives of ordinary people who learn to assume extraordinary identities. But perhaps more importantly, I have experienced this transformation in my own life. I have proven the power of assumption not just in theory, but in practice. I have lived from the wish fulfilled and watched as my entire world rearranged itself to match my assumption. This is not something I believe. This is something I know. This is something I have lived. And now I pass this knowledge to you, not as mere information, but as living truth. You have within you the same power that has created every great achievement in human history. You have within you the same consciousness that has manifested every beautiful thing you have ever admired. The only difference between you and those who have achieved what you desire is that they learn to assume the identity of achievement, while you have continued to assume the identity of limitation. Tonight, I challenge you to begin the practice of assumption. Choose the identity you wish to embody. Construct the scene that implies its fulfillment. Feel yourself into that scene with all the vividness and intensity you can muster. Return to it again and again until it becomes more real to you than your present circumstances. Persist in this assumption until it becomes your natural state of consciousness. Do not be discouraged if results do not appear immediately. Remember that consciousness is like a garden. You plant the seed of your assumption. You water it with persistent feeling, and you wait for it to bear fruit. Some seeds sprout quickly. Others take longer to germinate. But if you maintain the proper conditions, if you continue to nourish your assumption with feeling, if you protect it from the weeds of doubt and fear, it will inevitably manifest in your experience. The law of assumption is impersonal. It works for everyone who applies it correctly, regardless of their background, their education, their circumstances, their past failures or successes. It is not a reward for the good or a punishment for the bad. It is simply the way consciousness operates. When you assume something to be true about yourself, consciousness has no choice but to manifest evidence of that assumption in your experience. This means that you are always demonstrating the law, whether you know it or not. Your present circumstances are the perfect reflection of what you have been assuming about yourself, consciously or unconsciously. If you do not like your present circumstances, do not blame others or fate or chance. Look within and ask yourself what you have been assuming. What identity have you been maintaining? What feeling have you been carrying about yourself and your life? When you identify the assumption that has been creating your unwanted circumstances, you can immediately begin to change it. You can consciously choose a new assumption, a new identity, a new feeling about yourself. This is your power, your prerogative, your divine inheritance. You are not bound by what you have been. You are free to become what you choose to be. The time for transformation is now. Not tomorrow, not when conditions improve, not when you feel more confident or more prepared. Now, this very moment, you can begin to assume the identity you desire. This very moment, you can begin to feel yourself to be what you want to be. This very moment, you can begin to live from the wish fulfilled. Remember that assumption is not a one-time event, but a way of life. It is not something you do occasionally when you want something specific. It is something you do constantly, moment by moment, day by day. You are always assuming something about yourself. The question is whether you will assume consciously or unconsciously, deliberately or by default. Choose to assume consciously. Choose to assume deliberately. Choose to assume the highest and best that you can imagine for yourself. Do not settle for mediocrity when greatness is available to you. Do not accept limitation when freedom is your birthright. Do not remain in lack when abundance is the natural state of consciousness. Your new identity awaits your assumption. Your fulfilled desire awaits your feeling. Your transformed life awaits your persistence. All the power you need is already within you. All the knowledge you require has been given to you tonight. The only thing that remains is your decision to apply what you have learned. Will you continue to live from your old identity, or will you assume your new one? Will you continue to hope and wish and want? Or will you begin to live from the wish fulfilled? Will you remain bound by appearances? Or will you exercise your power as the operant consciousness in your world? The choice is yours, and it is a choice you must make not once but every moment of every day. Each time you think about yourself, each time you feel into your identity, each time you assume something about your nature and your life, you are choosing who you will be and what you will experience. Choose wisely. Choose boldly. Choose with the full knowledge that you are the creator of your own experience, the author of your own story, the artist of your own life. Assume the identity that will create the life you truly desire. Feel yourself to be what you want to be. Live from the wish fulfilled. This is the great secret, the ultimate truth, the final revelation. You are not who you think you are. You are who you assume yourself to be. Change your assumption and you change your world. Assume your new identity and watch as everything in your life transforms to match that assumption. The power is yours. The choice is yours. The time is now. Assume your new identity and live from thee fulfilled, for this is your destiny, your purpose, your divine calling. This is the way to freedom, to fulfillment, to the complete realization of your infinite potential. Go forth and assume. Go forth and feel. Go forth and live from the end. Your new life begins the moment you truly embrace your new identity. Your transformation begins the moment you feel yourself to be what you have always wanted to be. Your wish is fulfilled the moment you assume that it is. This is the truth that sets you free. This is the knowledge that transforms your world. This is the power that makes all things possible. Use it wisely, use it persistently, use it with the complete conviction that consciousness is the only reality, and that assumption is your creative power. Your new identity awaits. Your wish fulfilled beckons. Your transformed life calls to you from the dimension of consciousness, where it already exists in perfect completion. Step into that consciousness. Assume that identity. Live from that fulfillment. This is your birthright, your power, your destiny. The law is simple. The practice is clear. The results are inevitable. Assume your new identity and live from the wish fulfilled. For in the realm of consciousness, all things are possible to him who believes. And believing is simply assuming that what you desire is already yours and the only reality that truly matters. The reality of consciousness itself.